Welcome to MySafetyTrainingOnline.com presents Fall Protection for Residential Construction, Mod 3 of 3. What you will learn: 4 groups of residential construction activity, elements of a fall protection plan, alternative fall protection activities for each group, definitions of what a residential situation fit for each group, supportive activities for fall protection, slope and height requirements for fall protection. We'll discuss fall protection, the most effective to the least effective, and the least effort to the most effort. The less human effort for fall protection, the more effective the fall protection. It has long been OSHA's policy to follow the hierarchy of controls, where engineering controls are typically the most effective. Engineering controls are those designed into the work environment or process. The employee has nothing to do, or very little to do, to activate their safety features. An example of such control would be a guardrail system on a scaffold platform. As the employee has put more effort into activating the control, the less effective it becomes due to the many possible reasons. Some of those reasons include laziness, human error, lack of training on proper use, misunderstanding of the importance of control, or simply a lack of understanding of the hazard. Even the best engineering controls, the employee must be trained and understand the hazard and controls to ensure implemented controls are effective. This all holds true of protecting employees from falling hazards. Alright, let's discuss the different types of groups for fall protection. Group 1 is the floor joist or floor sheathing or roof sheathing, erecting an exterior wall or setting bracing, roof trusses, and rafters. Group 2 would be concrete and block foundation walls and related formwork. Group 3, when performed in attics or on roofs, installing drywall, insulation, HVAC systems, and electrical systems. Group 4, that is roofing work when you do removal, repair, or installation of weatherproofing materials such as shingles, tile, and tar paper. There are 4 groups of residential construction activities for which alternative fall protection plans are available. Each group has its own set of alternative procedures. Where workers on construction sites are exposed to vertical drops of 6 feet or more, OSHA requires that employers provide conventional fall protection in one of 3 ways before work begins: placing guardrails around the hazard area, deploying safety nets, providing personal fall arrest systems for each worker. Alternative procedures are permitted under the OSHA directive. They can permit employers engaged in certain residential construction activities to use alternative procedures routinely instead of conventional fall protection. The OSHA directive states that employers are not exempted and still obligated to comply with other OSHA standards and conventional fall protection if alternative procedures are not used. Working environments, materials, methods, and procedures are essentially the same as single-family homes or townhouses. They are characterized by materials such as wood framing, not steel or concrete, wooden floor joists or roof structures, and the methods call for traditional wood frame construction techniques. Section 2, Group 1 Details. Fall protection plan found in Appendix E of Subpart M. The height limitations. Structures up to 3.5 stories or 48 feet, including the basement and 2 finished levels, or an attic. They are measured from the base of the building at the lowest ground level, including any excavation, to the point of greatest height. The plan must be communicated to all employees on site, subject to all fall hazards. Alternative procedures for Group 1: doing the installation of floor joists or floor sheathing or roof sheathing, erecting exterior walls or setting and bracing roof trusses and rafters. Employee training coverage of a fall protection plan must include requirements of the plan, an understanding of the procedures, and follow instructions of the supervisor or foreman. They must be able to recognize unsafe or hazardous conditions and report them to the employer. Alternative procedures call for recognizing when compliance with the plan would create a greater hazard and informing the competent person before proceeding. Concerns raised by employees must be addressed. The employer must designate a competent person, qualified person, crew supervisor, or foreman. The supervisor and or foreman can be a competent and qualified person. Floor joist, floor sheathing, and roof sheathing, as well as erecting walls, setting and bracing roof trusses, and rafters should be among his knowledge base. A competent person means one who is capable of identifying existing and predictable hazards in the surroundings of the work environment, which are unsanitary, hazardous, or dangerous to employees, and who has the authorization to take prompt corrective measures to eliminate them. References 1926.32, Section F. A competent person will be in charge of implementing the plan. He or she will continually monitor compliance with the plan, including the provision of training and the proper use of controlled access zones. A qualified person means one who has possession of a recognized degree, certificate, or professional standing, or who by extensive knowledge, training, and experience has successfully demonstrated his ability to solve and resolve problems relating to the subject matter, the work, or the project. The person is designated. They review and approve any changes to the plan. A designated crew supervisor or foreman is responsible for the immediate correction of any unsafe practice or condition. Unstable footing, scaffold, re-erected with a proper mudsill is still placement, are all conditions that need to be corrected. A controlled access zone, or CAZ, restricts access to a clearly designated area where Group 1 activity is taking place. The boundaries are clearly marked, such as using signs, wires, tapes, ropes, or chains. The crew supervisor or foreman monitors, and the restricted access is only to authorized or trained entrance. A final check is done before work begins, and the competent person must ensure that all protective measures in the plan have been implemented. Employer enforcement. Crew supervisors, foremen, safety, and personnel departments have the right to issue disciplinary warnings for unsafe practices or conditions, which must be corrected immediately. Alternative procedures for Group 1, Plan Administration. A qualified person approves changes to the plan by reviewing the plan as the job progresses to determine the need for additional practices, procedures, or training. Accident investigation. All accidents are reported and investigated by the competent person, and investigation is documented. The plan is reviewed in the event of a fall or other serious incidents occurring. When installing roof trusses and erecting rafters, walls up to 8 feet, use interior scaffolds below the area where the trusses or rafters will be located. Sawhorse scaffolds are acceptable. For walls over 8 feet, falling objects that can occur are controlled through restricted access zones during the truss installation. A further footnote for installing roof trusses or erecting walls over 8 feet, brace the trusses before being used as a support. Designate the trained workers for the top plate and peak work. Top plate workers have no other duties other than truss erection. Okay, let's restate the requirements for walls over 8 feet. Once a truss or rafter installation begins, workers not involved with that activity shall not stand or walk below or adjacent to the roof openings or exterior walls in any area where they could be struck by falling objects. Trusses and rafters must be adequately braced before any worker may use them as support. The employer must designate the trained workers who will work on the top plate and those who will work on the peak. Top plate workers shall have no other duties during the truss rafter erection. Remember the procedures for working on the top plate. Installing the first two trusses and rafters must be set from ladders. The ladders must lean on side walls at points where the walls can support the load imposed by the ladder and the worker. After the first two trusses have been set, a worker will climb a ladder onto the interior of the top plate and secure their peaks. The procedures for working at the peak call for when workers work on the peaks, the ridge beam, workers detaching the trusses from the cranes or securing the trusses at the peaks must be positioned at the peak of the truss or rafter. Workers may be stationed on top of the ridge beam where only the feasible way is to secure the rafters to the ridge beam. A stable work position calls for workers at the peak in the web of the trusses or on the top of the ridge beam shall work from a stable position. They must sit either on the ridge seat or the equivalent, or position themselves in previously stabilized trusses and rafters and lean into and reach through the rafters and trusses. There should be a limited fall exposure hazard. Workers must not remain on or in the peak any longer than necessary to complete the task safely. When working on the top plate, there are additional requirements. First, two trusses are set from supported ladders. Once set, the worker will climb the ladder onto the interior top plate to secure the peaks. He will use previously stabilized trusses as support while the other trusses are being erected. Roof sheathing operations. A competent person must determine when the roof system is stable enough to support conventional fall protection anchorage. Once the roof system is stable enough for the anchorage, personal fall arrest systems must be used. When performing roof sheathing operations, you should have qualified workers, staging of materials, secure footing and weathering, slide guards, as well as restricted access zones or falling object protections. Roof sheathing operations call for provisions that can apply until the roof system can be used as an anchorage point. At that point in time, personal fall arrest systems must be used. During roof sheathing operations, they should be suspended when roof winds exceed 40 miles per hour. All materials should be staged for quick access by the workers. A restricted access zone can be used during sheathing installation, provided you use 4-inch slide guards. The employer can ensure that workers remove slip hazards before walking on sheathing. Such measures include removing mud from shoes or boots. Here we can see that roof slide guard requirements for roof sheathing are different from those of roof work performed in Group 4. If the roof type is all roofs with a pitch, then the slide guard intervals will be at the bottom row of the roof sheathing. If they're up to and including 9 and 12, then you'll have 13-foot intervals. If they're over 9 and 12, you'll have 4-foot intervals. Additional requirements call for trained workers, staged materials with quick access, and a restricted access zone for those not assisting. Do not permit anyone within 6 feet of the leading edge. The first floor joist or truss rolled into position and secured by workers on the ground, ladders, or sawhorse scaffold. Successive joists or truss must be rolled into place and secured from the platform. A platform is built by laying a sheet of plywood over previously secured floor joists or trusses. Okay, installation process of the floor sheathing calls for the first row of floor sheathing installed by workers on the ground, ladders, or sawhorse scaffolds. After the first row has been installed, then they can work from an established deck. Erection of exterior walls. Employers need to designate trained workers, stage materials for quick access, limit the fall exposure by cutting the materials away from the edge of the deck, painting a warning line 6 feet from the perimeter before any wall erection activity begins, and provide for a monitor for those working near the unprotected edge. Group 2, Alternative Procedures discussion. Group 2 alternative procedures call for procedures for protecting employees when working at the top of a surface block, foundation wall, a concrete foundation wall, or related formwork. Group 2 covers working on concrete, block, and foundation walls as well as related formwork. Only trained workers are allowed to work on top of the foundation wall or formwork, and only as necessary to complete construction of the wall. All formwork shall be adequately supported before any worker may work on top of the form. When adverse weather creates hazardous conditions, operations shall be suspended. Impalement hazards shall be cleared from the area below the workers or shall be properly guarded. Again, all stage materials should be placed for quick access. Group 3 alternative procedures for roofers. Procedures for activities when performed in attics or on roofs, installing drywall or insulation. HVAC systems, electrical systems, including alarms, telephone lines, or cable TV, as well as plumbing and carpentry. Group 3 says that only trained workers are allowed to work in attics and roofs, and only as necessary to complete the system being installed. Stage materials for quick access, impalement hazards must be kept out of the area below the workers or shall be properly guarded. Of course, an restricted access zone below the openings in the ceilings to reduce the falling object hazards. When adverse weather conditions create a hazardous situation, all operations shall be suspended. Group 4, Alternative Roofing Fall Protection Procedures. Group 4 covers the procedures involving roof activities such as removal or repair or installation of weatherproofing roofing materials such as shingles, tile, and tar paper. It covers situations where the roofs have an eave height of over 25 feet. It covers any type of slope and any roof type. Alternatives to the requirements of the standard are not available. General requirements for Group 4 alternative call for only workers trained to be proficient in alternative means of fall protection shall be allowed onto the roof. Infected employees shall be trained in specific awareness of fall hazards associated with the work on roofs with rake edges. They shall be inspected for and eliminate any slipping hazards or take effective measures to have the workers avoid slipping hazards. Workers must wear appropriate footwear. General requirements in Group 4 are the same as 1 through 3. When an adverse weather condition creates a hazardous condition, operations will be suspended. They cover repair of any roof deck damage, and you will cover or guard any holes, including skylight openings. Roofing work and material, such as the removal, repair, and installation of weatherproofing roofing materials, such as shingles, tile, and tar paper. Erect and maintain ladders and scaffolds in accordance with subparts X and L. Trained employees in requirements of subparts X and L, and do not ascend or descend the roof slope within 6 feet of the rake edge. Group 4. Do not store supplies or materials within 6 feet of the rake edge or 3 feet where tile roof systems are being installed. Keep the area below the eaves and rakes and clear of impalement hazards or with properly guard the hazards. For Group 4 with eaves height of up to 25 feet, the roof slope up to 4 and 12, you will use either a safety monitoring system that complies with .502 or roofing slide guards. For a roof slope over 8 and 12, alternatives are not available. The roof slope for Group 4 is over 4 and 12 or up to 8 and 12. Slide guards are going to be required, and tile or metal roofs call for a safety monitoring system which may be used instead of slide guards. Slide guard use for Group 4 call for roofs slope 6 and 12 or less. They should be constructed of 2-inch by 6-inch stock. No more than 3 rows of roofing material installed across the lower eave shall be applied while installing the slide guards. Roof jacks or similar supports shall be installed using nails long enough to withstand an employee sliding into the guard. Slide guards for Group 4 call for the face of the guard must be perpendicular to the surface of the roof. Continuous slide guards along the eave shall be placed in position. Group 4 can install additional slide guards below each work area at intervals not to exceed 8 feet. The slide guards at the eave must be at least 90 degrees to the roof surface, and additional guards need not be continuous or at a 90-degree angle to the roof surface. Okay, here we can see a chart which provides interim fall protection compliance for residential roofing situations. As you can see, the greater the slope, the greater the requirements. 4 and 12, 25 feet or less, can use roofing slide guards. 6 and 12, 25 feet or less, also can use slide guards or equivalent. But more in 6 and 12 up to and including 25 feet or less, slide guards with roof equivalents, as well as continuous eave slide guards. Slide guard requirements for roofing are different from those for roofing sheathing in Group 1. Here we can see the chart for interim fall protection compliance, where 8 and 12 or less, 25 feet or less, from the eave to the lower level, can use safety monitoring systems. Greater than 8 and 12 can use conventional fall protection, and greater than 4 and 12, conventional fall protection shall be used, such as safety nets, guardrails, and personal fall arrest systems. Residential roofing fall protection safety summary. Group 1 calls for floor joists, floor sheathing or roof sheathing operations, as well as erecting exterior walls, setting and bracing roof trusses and rafters. Group 2 covers concrete block, foundation walls, and related roof work. Group 3 calls for when performing work in attics or on roofs, installing drywall insulation, HVAC systems, and electrical systems. Group 4 calls for roofing work, the removal, repair, or installation of weatherproofing materials. And of course, all groups are covered by the condition that when adverse weather creates hazardous conditions, operations are suspended. Once the roof system is stable enough for anchorage, personal fall arrest systems must be used. Thanks for participating from the gentle folks of MySafetyTrainingOnline.com.